The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon. We just want to do a sound check before we get started. So if you can hear my voice, please raise your hand using the hand icon. Okay, perfect. I've got a hand raised. Thank you very much. All right. So welcome and thank you for attending the Office of Occupational Therapy's stakeholder meeting via webinar today. Today's date is April 14, 2021, and the time is 1 p.m. Before we get started, we would like to introduce the staff members from the Division of Professions and Occupations that are present. My name is Elena Kemp, and I'm a regulatory coordinator with the division. Also attending, we have Darcy Magnuson, and she is a regulatory analyst. In compliance with the governor's orders regarding COVID-19, the division has transitioned to a platform that is 100% virtual, and we appreciate your flexibility. As many of you have been to DORA stakeholder meetings before, we would like to reiterate the importance of your comments today. DORA makes decisions every day that may affect your life and your business, so your input is vital in the rulemaking process. Throughout this process, our goal is to create regulations that clarify and explain legislation, ensure minimum competency to enter and continue practice, and provide only what is absolutely necessary for consumer protection without creating unnecessary barriers to the marketplace. Your input will be part of the information that goes to the director as the director considers adopting revisions to multiple rules to implement Colorado Senate Bill 21003. That bill is concerning the recreation and reenactment with amendments of the Occupational Therapy Practice Act. We'll also be talking about revisions to Rule 1.5 to implement Colorado House Bill 2013-26. That's concerning an expansion of an individual's ability to practice an occupation in Colorado through the creation of an occupational credential portability program. And we'll also be discussing the adoption of Rule 1.1 and Appendix B to implement Colorado Senate Bill 20102. That's concerning the required disclosures to patients regarding formal actions based on sexual misconduct. This meeting is being recorded and will be posted on the website by the close of business tomorrow. And as the stakeholder meeting is held solely via webinar, please raise your hand if you would like to speak, and we will unmute your line so you'll be heard by everyone. Or you can type your question or comment in the question section, and we'll read it aloud. Before we start taking comments, we want to please ask that anyone that does plan to provide comments, state your name and the name of the organization, if any. Feel free to provide either general comments on the rule changes or specific comments on the proposed language. Please try to keep your comments limited to 3 to 5 minutes and try to keep redundancy to a minimum. If you are using audio through your computer, please remember to put any phones on vibrate or turn them off. And whether you're using computer or phone audio, try to keep all background noises to a minimum when speaking. So at this time, we do have the draft version of the rules showing on the screen. Let me make sure you guys, okay, perfect. And we'll just kind of go through the rules. And Darcy, I don't know if you want to jump in and kind of explain some of the changes. But stakeholders, if you guys have questions or comments about the draft changes, feel free to raise your hand at this time. It looks like I do have a hand raised. Miss Janice Hines, I am going to unmute your line. Hello.
Hi. Hi.
Good afternoon.
My name is Denise Hines.
Sorry. Hello.
And I can hear an echo. Well, distracted. I have both, and I'm representing myself. I'm an occupational therapist. I actually work for the state, but I'm not representing the state as a state employee talking about this. I have specific and kind of general recommendations about this, the whole first section about the rules and regulations.
Okay, perfect.
Part of, yeah. So you
No. Go ahead. I just want to make sure that I'm notating this for the board or for the director. Sorry. So yeah, feel free.
You know how one of the overall comments is how you have active reestablishing or the inactive licensure part, and you have OTs and OTAs combined in that section. I was wondering if there were multiple other sections that could be combined that way, instead of a section about OTs do this and then OT assistants, do this. So that's just one. It's kind of a reformatting and restructuring of much of it. The inactive license is 1.163 on page 16. I just thought that read so nice and clean.
And let me navigate through the rules. Okay. Rule 1.16. Okay. So this is the section you were talking about where you said that you recommend that we combine.
So yeah, just any of the other sections, there's so much that's similar in them. And it felt like it might read easier to find.
So sort of putting in like just the general provisions at the beginning.
Yeah.
Okay. Does that clarify?
Well, like how this section has the general in the beginning, and then, no, I lost my page. And then it splits it out when you get to like section D. Then it talks about OT and OTA. Other.
So this is the example, like this section.
That's the example of what looked good.
Okay.
And this is Darcy. I want to say too, if I'm not mistaken, the statute breaks it out OTs and OTAs. So I think that's why the rules in general mirror. Something like an active license status applies across all license types within the division. So we can certainly take a look at your suggestion, but I believe that is why it's broken out the way it is. We definitely want to look at duplication or if there are ways that we can make the rules more simple. So I do appreciate your comment, but I just picture in my head the way the statute is, and I think that's how it's written.
I can picture how it's written too. Thank you.
Thank you. So if you're just joining us on the webinar, we've opened the floor to comments, questions about the rules. The rules that are showing on the screen were also sent out with the notice. So if you have a particular section that you wanted to talk about, this is your opportunity to voice those concerns or suggestions. For the director to later review. So I'm just going to scroll back to the top. Um,
So while Elena's scrolling, so the first section that you're seeing, the new added, those are just to make the rules conform with the Secretary of State styling manual. So with the authority, purpose, and applicability. And then throughout the rest of it, we did the same thing. So at the beginning of each rule, added the statutory authority for the promulgation of every rule. And then the rest of it is all legislative implementation for the sunset, Senate Bill 2102 and House Bill 21326.
Looks like we have a couple of hands raised. Ms. Bailey Johnson, I'm going to unmute your line. It looks like you're self-muted.
Thank you.
Hi.
My question was regarding the length or the specifics in the section about the length of fieldwork weeks for both OTA and OT.
Do you happen to know what rule that that section is that you're referring to? I'm going to show it on the screen.
There's a comment. Hang on.
If not, no worries. You said the field work.
I think it's 24 hours, I believe, for one of them. So if you search 24, that should pop it up, Elena, spelled out.
Yeah, so 24 is what is listed for OT, and then 16 is listed under the OTA section. And I apologize, I don't have the numbers ready.
My apologies.
If you type out 24, it's spelled out.
Oh, okay.
That way you won't get all the statutory references.
Okay.
Here we go. So the occupational therapy assistant one is 1.130.
If you just type out, it pops up when you type 20, Elena.
Oh.
Just leave it at 20. It'll show you. It'll go right there.
Oh, here we are.
So I believe in the most recent Practice Act, we eliminated that number of weeks and just completion of fieldwork that met generally recognized past accreditation standards in effect at the time of the applicant's graduation, and just took out the numbers altogether.
Okay, so your suggestion is to just remove the numbers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, and that's consistent with the sunset review.
Correct.
Okay. Because
And
just to make sure that, because the rule should clarify and explain the legislation, so as long as you think it's clear in rule, we can certainly take that suggestion to the director.
And then in the section, let me just get the rule number for the OT section for you as well.
And you said that was written in the sunset bill?
Correct. There's no number of weeks.
Okay. Okay, perfect. Is there another section to look up?
Yeah, sorry, the rule 1.41 is the occupational therapist section. So it's under B number 3.
You said rule 1.14.
1.41. And so I would just strike the minimum period of supervised field work, or sorry, I would strike is 24 weeks or completion of field work, and then just have the minimum period of supervised field work generally recognized past accreditation standards in effect at time of applicant's graduation.
Here we are. I'm sorry, can you repeat that? My apologies.
So you could probably just strike
In B3.
starting at is 24 weeks or completion of field work that, and then I think that would make sense.
So strike this section.
Yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, I believe it's also defined it in the OTA section, right? And that's
Correct.
24 weeks as well. Or is it 16 is what we originally were talking about? I was just thinking, if you have a page number too, that might be helpful for Elena of what you're looking at, because the numbering is changed with the renumbering from the beginning. So it's hard to follow the actual rule numbering on the red line.
Okay. All right, Miss Janice, I am going to unmute your line.
Hi again. Hi, Bailey. Starting at the beginning, with under 1.2 under scope and practice. I don't know if it's redundant, but on that first line, this regulation shall govern the process to become a licensed occupational therapist or a licensed occupational therapy assistant. A little bit lower on that same first page under occupational therapist licensure by examination in section 2, in A number 2,
Yeah.
licensure applicants have a continuing obligation to update their application. I think that I know that the there is the applicant, and that's not, we're really working at eliminating any of those personal pronouns, but that one seems to really make sense. There's another place in here that is confusing.
Okay, do you have some suggested language that you would like to see written in the rule?
It might be,
What if we just made it the application?
have a continuing obligation to update their own application.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Yep. Licensure applicants have a continuing obligation to update their own application. Yes, right there.
Okay.
So then on page 2 at the very end, it's starting to talk about the credentialing portability program rather than by endorsement. That whole thing just really kind of messed me up. So I know that we've had endorsement that's still currently what's in statute. And I know that as the OTs are working with the drafter on being included in a compact licensure act. So for the rulemaking purposes for right now, when we talk about portability, is that the same as endorsement?
Yes.
So I don't know then if we're striking the word endorsement from that title, then in A in that section, then there's, the third line down, shall apply for licensure by endorsement. Most of the time I feel like I know what I'm reading, and I got a little mixed up. So I don't know if there's a clarification because we're changing language, and a compact also means it's, there's some portability to it, and we're not quite that far yet.
Probably, are you suggesting the changes to shall apply for licensure through the occupational portability program? Is that what you are suggesting?
No, because we're hopeful that the statute or the program that OT is trying to be part of, and so our speech language therapists are working on it. Others are too, as far as creating being part of a compact in a commission. In order for OTs in Colorado, in order for the state of Colorado to be part of more of a national kind of compact act, or compact program, there'd have to be 10 states that are part of it. I don't know how long that's going to take. So currently we have to have, in the summer, we have to have a way of how can somebody from Wyoming use their license and use that as a way to apply for a license in Colorado. We're not there yet, right? I think with a whole compact act. So we can't quite be consistent with it because we would be a little bit ahead of ourselves.
Okay.
So maybe it's just, with the director kind of clearing up of, right now we have licensure by endorsement. And I'm fine if we want to call it licensure by portability, just so long as that we're clear then all the way throughout that, the former language was endorsement and the current language is portability. And that we're not too far ahead of ourselves in this to be referencing a compact portability that isn't in existence yet.
Gotcha.
So this is Darcy again. I think also looking at the statute on this one, if you go to the OT statute and you look for, there should be a section on licensure by endorsement, and then you click on that, the language underneath, and I don't have it pulled up in front of me, but I could, will then direct you to and use the occupational credential portability program. So I think in statute, it's still called licensure by endorsement. So I think they use both to describe. I certainly see what you're saying, that it's confusing. We struck it in the title, but then in the rule we go back to it. So we can definitely talk to the director about that, but I believe that's how the statute is structured.
It is. I have the statute pulled up, and on page 10, number 5 is titled licensure by endorsement. And it does say satisfies the requirements of the occupational credential portability program. So I'm so great with these being updated to be consistent with the revise the updated Licensure Act statute. I think we're all on the same page.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and I hear what you're saying. So Legal Aid has that flagged, and we can certainly revisit it.
Thank you. Page 6, under Declaratory Orders, you guys worked super hard at the his and the her and the she's and all that. So in this, that right where you are with B, the director, then kind of underneath that, there's a his, her. So we want that to say either the licensee or, you know, notify the petitioner of the action and state the reasons. You see B on the third line down. Yep, and there was one right there too. So we worked at that in our statute of removing any binary language. And I know that you guys have made a comment that that's what we want to do with this, the rules and regs too.
Yes, thank you for that. And Elena, will you make a comment there just for us to go back and do a Control F to see what ones we missed? Because you're correct, we did try to remove all of that through this process.
And in that same idea, yeah, it would be if you're putting the director or the applicant or the licensee. And that might apply to theirs as also, THEIR. And her, just single her. Single her ends up meaning the director.
Okay.
Okay, that'll take care of some of my highlight kind of pieces. Thank you.
Thank you.
Under professional liability insurance, number A2, about $1 million and $3 million. Is that still accurate? And is that still enough? And who decides that? Like, I want to say that my liability insurance, I think, is a $2 million, $4 million. So that's just a question about if and I get that's a minimum.
Thank you for flagging that. We'll run that by the director.
On page 13, under OT assistant licensure by exam, under education requirements, number 4, predecessor. Maybe it's under, so number 4, you earlier have talked about that any references to NBCOT or its predecessors, NBCOT kind of, you know, that means, you know, or its predecessors. So in number 2, above that one, where it's ACOT, I think in OT assistance that it maybe hasn't been mentioned, that could also be, or its predecessors. So ACOT, I think that back in the day it was AOTA who was more the kind of that programmatic accrediting body. I have a note to myself about refer back to 1.4.B2.
Does that
Yes, I think that that's fine. Or its predecessor.
okay? Oh, and this is the section that Ms. Bailey was speaking of earlier.
Yes.
LTAs.
Yes. And you're both correct in that we did remove that in statute as well. Do you know there's out of like the 50-something states and jurisdictions that have licensure, and they all require some kind of this experiential field work or internships. About half of the states have dates mentioned in it, and about half of them don't. And ACOT, the accrediting body, right now in their standards, they have dates in there. It doesn't matter if ACOT would take that out. You know, people still have to be able to be compliant with what the state says. So kind of by default for quite a while, it's going to be 16 and 24 weeks at the minimum. But it's just kind of getting us a little bit more modernized.
Okay. Well, thank you. Do you have any other feedback?
Some of it was just questions about under reinstatement of expired license for OT assistants. There's different amounts of, so this would be page 16 and C2. They're required to have 12 professional development activities, and OTs are required, I think it is, to have 24. I just wondered what the difference was in how many, when there's differences between, especially in the professional competency program and in reinstatement of a license, like just why there are differences between what's required of OTs and what's required of OT assistants. I don't know that. It seems like if it would be, things would be more consistent, it would be a little bit easier to manage that. And I don't really know where the thoughts came from about why some of this would be different. So I think it's maybe just to have the director look at similarities and differences, and that's still kind of the thoughtfulness.
Okay, and just
We can certainly do that.
Just so I'm clear, you referenced 12?
Well, they're on like right before professional development activities, it says completion of 12 for each year.
Oh, I see.
Right there.
Mm-hmm.
I have. Here's another maybe clearer example about differences. On page 18, and this is in the military experience section, but number 1, A is talking about an OT, and B is talking about the OT assistant. And in A, the second to last line says that somebody should have at least 400 hours in 2 years, 2 years immediately preceding. And in B, it's 400 hours in the 3 years immediately preceding.
Okay.
And then you see in B, the very last line where it says 3 years.
Yes.
Okay. This might be something that is, so also in this military section, number 2 with A and B, this is a little bit of one of the examples of
I'm listening. Sorry.
okay, of where like to have OT and OTA, kind of the consistency. So A talks about this is, you know, what an OT application would look like, and it's just that one paragraph. And then B kind of goes all the way back to the beginning. So this is number 2, section A, and then section B. Like, could A and B the same? And I don't know what the reason is for that difference. And you know, if there is one, or that's aligned with what it looks like in statute, that's fine. Yeah, it's just an example, kind of what we talked about a little bit earlier.
Okay.
Okay. So on page 20, the required disclosure to patients. What we've used in our statute, we use the word clients. So if client could be exchanged with patient, that would be great. If both of them need to be in there, then I think that would be a second preference.
We just went through this with all the other boards and programs who implemented this, and because the statute, Senate Bill 2102, says patient, we're going under leaving it as patient instead of client.
That's fine. Okay. Thank you for that. I saw there was one added and then kind of blued out, and I kind of wondered about that. And then this page 25 under temporary licensure. This is maybe just a question that as of, so the temporary licensure was granted during the pandemic and because of an executive order. So to me, it looks like everybody who was eligible and was under a temporary license, they all end by June 30th of 2021. So I don't know when these updated rules and regulations are going to come out, but it was just a comment or a question that I think that this whole section would go away after July 1st.
Correct. It'll depend on executive orders, but the emergency rules are only good for 120 days.
Yeah. Okay. So if for some reason there would be another executive order that would be added onto it, then this would have to be kind of, then for one that was issued during this time, whatever would happen. I guess that would have to be updated.
Exactly.
Expanded scope of practice. And then like that, I think that's about the vast majority of what I've got. Thank you.
Elena, will you flag the emergency rules just to delete for filing purposes? So we don't include those with the filing since they are just emergency.
Okay.
And when I talk about filing, I'm talking about the Secretary of State just for stakeholders who are participating. So the permanent notice of rulemaking that will be filed with the Secretary of State.
Oh. I believe that's this as well. Several sections. Okay. That's the end. Oh, looks like we have another hand raised. Miss Janice, you're unmuted. Hello?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I was lowering my hand. But thank you guys so much for doing this and for working through all of those comments and suggestions with me. Thank you.
Absolutely. And thank you for providing such good feedback.
You're welcome.
All right, I don't show any other hands raised or comments or questions in the question section. Not at this time. So the time is 1:44. We can wait a few more minutes just in case somebody is typing a comment or question. And if not, if we don't have any more feedback, then we'll proceed with ending the meeting. The time is 1:46. We don't have any other hands raised or questions or comments that were typed in, so we'll proceed. Thank you for participating in today's meeting. All of the stakeholder comments and program recommendations will be presented to the director for review and consideration before the director adopts revisions to the rules. Stakeholders will be provided a final opportunity to provide testimony at the permanent rulemaking hearing, which is tentatively scheduled for May 19th, 2021. This concludes our stakeholder meeting. And once again, I do want to appreciate everyone for your participation. We're going to go ahead and end the webinar now.